Welcome to the Diablo Immortal Legendary Gem tier list. This is going to be a long, higher quality, higher effort video. What I'm going to be doing is going through every single legendary gem in the game. First, we will be showing you the gem in game, talking about what it does. After that, we're going to pop it up on the screen and place it. So for instance, I would discuss power and command, say blah, 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 power and command does this, this, this. I think because of what it does, it is an A tier gem. Keep in mind, because of the way 5-star, 2-star, and 1-star gems work, 5-star gems are pretty much always better. So you can safely assume when I'm rating these, I'm rating them based upon their passives and in proximity with other things. So for instance, if I was going to give Phoenix Ashes a B tier ranking, but I was going to give, let's say, Fervant Fang like an A tier rating, or a Bloody Reach an S tier rating, even though it's 2-star, factually, the Phoenix Ashes will always be better because of the resonance and combat rating, but this list is more designed for people when they get a new gem or want to know about a gem, get some information on it, and get a general rating of the gem. That is the purpose of this video. For that reason, I will have every single gem spelled out as well as in a timestamp below, so if you just acquired a certain gem, you can just hit Control F in the YouTube comment and find exactly where that link is and save yourself some time. This is a higher effort video, so for this, please do like the video or subscribe to this channel, as I'm doing my best to provide you detailed, informative videos multiple times every single day, and I've been keeping this up for months at this point. Let's get going. Power and command. A solid 2-star gem. It gives you primary attack damage as well as other skill damage, alternating back and forth. Now, if you have it upgraded to rank 3 or higher, it's going to have a chance to dispel a negative effect when it does it. The thing about this gem is that the chance to dispel is fairly low. The buff is hard to manage. It's hard to tell when you actually can optimize those opportunity windows to do like, oh, now I have skill damage, let me use my skills. Very often in the game, it comes down to just luck of when you have the correct power and command version up. For this reason, the gem is good, because if you have somebody who uses both like basic attacks and abilities a lot, like a demon hunter, for instance, it will actually be fairly useful most of the time. It's good, not great. When it comes to the actual tier list ranking of it, I think this gem is a solid B or A tier in my personal opinion, but I think just because it's good, not great, I'm going to put it at B tier to start. The Hunger, a somewhat underrated gem. It has a healing effect. One of the only gems that actually has this. It heals for base damage plus life. I think if maybe you're running some shield type of sets so you can shield yourself when you go low and then heal after that, might be all right. Most times in the game, healing isn't really that good, however. This is where it can get better, though. Increases your attack speed for 3 seconds after defeating an enemy. Doesn't seem like there is any cooldown on that. So as you upgrade this gem higher and higher, your attack speed is going to be going higher and higher in things like PvE. And I could see if you're really trying to be, like, let's say you're a monk or a barbarian, or you're somebody who's running in and constantly doing damage and farming the overworld, and you don't have to constantly be spamming healing, I suppose you could use this. I don't really find this gem to be that great in my own personal opinion. I think its best use in the game is on melees, and melees tend to not be the best in the game either. For that reason, as it stands today, I think I'm going to be putting the Hunger in C tier. Battleguard. It decreases all melee damage from enemies within a certain distance. I hate things where you have to be a certain distance, especially if you're a range class. You have to be within a certain amount of yards. Obviously, the yardage goes up because it's green, but still, it's not a good look for these type of gems. Moving unhindered through enemies only when we're below a certain percent life. This doesn't do anything for increasing damage. Okay, personally, I do not like this gem. So if I had to give it a rating right now, Battleguard's not going to be doing very good for me. It's going to be even worse, in my opinion, than the Hungerer. Now, Lightning Core, I do actually like. Primary attacks charge up when you're moving around, so it overworld farming basically, and it deals base damage plus a certain amount to nearby enemies, so it is in fact an AoE. It can only occur every 20 seconds, but that's fine. I don't really think every 20 seconds is a big deal for something we can use in overworld farming, and increases all damage you deal for 3 seconds after calling the lightning, so you get a boost of damage too. Actually, one of the better 2-star gems in my personal opinion. I think I like it better than Power and Command now that I think about it. This one's probably my most controversial 2-star opinion. I'm starting to think that Lightning Core is actually A tier and better than Power and Command, just because overworld farming is so good. And I do think that having these burst windows is better than I used to believe. I used to kind of believe that having just percentage damage all the time is really the best, but I'm starting to buy into the burst window type things where you have like higher cooldowns, but burst opportunities. And the reason is you get enough of these burst windows that when you go from pack to pack to pack, you pretty much one-shot each pack. I'm learning this from Wizard at the moment. I could go into more detail, but make this video longer. So I'm just going to say that I actually believe this is A tier. Follower's Burden is one of these, just increased percentage damage like I'm saying, but it's hard not to like this one. Follower's Burden increases damage for each summon you control and decreases all damage your summons take. So obviously if you're somebody like the Necromancer, this is going to be fantastic. If you're someone like the Demon Hunter or something, the only bonus you're going to be getting out of this is the Echoing Shade. So for this reason, I'm going to assume you are somebody like the Necromancer or Monk that, you know, or even I guess the Barbarian at some in sub points that really uses summons. So if you're a Necromancer, I'm going to just assume, because it's for summons, S tier. This is one of the better 2-star gems, if not your best 2-star gem, if you are running any kind of summon builds. And summon builds are actually pretty good going into the late game. So I do believe that for 2-star, there's not too many S tier 2-stars, but it's one of them. Okay, speaking of 2-stars that are S tier, here, Bloody Reach, I'm going to give you a spoiler warning. This is an S tier. It increases damage for every 2 yards between you and the enemy up to a maximum, but the maximum is pretty good. This is at, right here, just the base level, 8%, okay? You also have a chance to decrease enemy attack and movement speed. So in PvE, things like Challenge Rifts, this is quite good. Amazing triple S tier plus Ultra, you know, whammy, all that stuff on things like the Demon Hunter, and obviously it's going to be good on Wizard, etc. too. For free to play, this is your god tier basically gem that you're going to be running for just to get the bonus damage alone. You kind of need some gems to give you some bonus damage so you have some kind of beef behind you, and this is one of the cheaper ways to do that. So for me, if we're going to actually make it official, put it on the list, yes, I think Bloody Reach is an S tier. Now, Unity Crystal I actually hate because it has this problem where you have to have party members with you at all times. And on top of it, the only thing it does is reduce damage. So I hate reducing damage effects because one, it assumes you're getting hit, so you're not either kiting properly or you're getting hit by skill shots, stuff like that, right? So if you're getting hit, normally it's like a positioning problem, in PvE at least anyway, because PvE is not really that hard, and I can't really see this being amazing in PvP, but, you know, maybe someone will prove me wrong on that, okay? And then on top of it, it's within a certain yardage. So not only do you have to have people, but they have to be, like, basically on your jock and for this to even do anything. And for me, that's just highly disappointing, okay? Now I understand increase party member damage done by all party members. That's quite nice. But the problem is, look at this. You and all party members, per additional party member within 6 yards of you, each party member increases damage done by all party members by a certain percentage, okay? But it says nearby, but it doesn't give us the distance, so I'm assuming the nearby is tied to this. And again, you have to be like right on top of each other. So even though this part's a little bit more appealing, it's just not good. So if we're going to be going to a tier list, I actually really don't like this one. I think it's probably worse than Hungerer, although it probably should be in C tier, to be honest, but I'm going to put it in a D tier with Battleguard. I don't like these defensive gems. Now, Cutthroat is really interesting because you get a good amount of critical chances, 8% just at the base here, and you increase damage when attacking from behind. So this is, you get onto a boss, you get a whole bunch more crit rate. And when you pair it with things like the Crusader banner where you're going to crit all the time and you have increased crit chance, obviously that goes to the crit damage, etc. It's more difficult in things like PvP where people are going to be facing you, etc. So this is a conditional gem. If you are only running 2 stars and you're free to play and you don't have many gems, it's probably going to be one of the gems you're going to be running. I think it's not an S tier. It's probably on the same level as Lightning Core. So honestly, I kind of want to put it to B because I think Lightning Core is more consistent, but crit chance in MMORPGs in particular, like these ones, and actually basically any game where you're just trying to increase your damage, it's a pretty big deal, in my personal opinion, to have crit chance, because not only that, but crit chance scales so well into the party, because in parties, it's going to be a little bit easier to actually hit things from behind with the Cutthroat, and the critical chance, like I'm saying with Crusader, is quite big, so I'm actually a fan of that one. Fervent Fang is actually one of the better 2-star gems. It racks up the damage more and more as you hit them and increases your attack more and more as you're hitting. So it's good on things like the Wizard, where you're hitting multiple times, and you can stack it pretty quickly. It goes up to 10 stacks. The problem with this one is you can only get it in certain locations. You can only really get it from the Battle Pass and from the random crafting, not from the selector crafting. That's why I have to show it to you in this inventory instead. And so it's harder to get for that reason, but it is actually a good gem. I don't think it's Bloody Reach good, but it's definitely Follower's Burden level of good. So I'm going to put it at S tier here with the other ones. So that is going to wrap up our 2-star gems. Black Rose, I think, might be one of the underutilized ones. It's 1 star. So as we talk about these 1 stars, I'm going to have to be fair to them. They are 1 star. Like I've already said, higher resonance combat rating is better, but we're going to give them a fair shake and a fair rating based upon what they actually do. So if you look at the Black Rose here, each time you are attacked, 10% chance to summon vines that immobilize the attacker, and the amount goes up with the, not only with your potency, but it goes up with the rank here too. Happens every 20 seconds, which is a decent, it's a decent recovery time, and then chance to summon vines increases when you go increasing the rank. So effectively, we have another CC mechanic. I don't believe immobilize is total loss of control, so this isn't going to trigger other gems like Chip of the Stone Flesh, but I don't think it's bad by any means. So where there's that going to put us on the list, I think it's good but not great. Often when I think that, what I think is it should go fairly in the middle, so I think it's going to be B tier. And let me see, which one of these gems is it? Like, there it is. That's the rose, right? B tier, there it is. Nightmare Wreath. Now you have a chance to fear people around, enemies around the enemy that you just killed, is the way this works. So you defeat an enemy, has a chance to basically blow up with a fear. Now, I don't really like this mechanic. The only thing I like about it is increases damage you deal the targets affected with fear. This can be a little secretly good on Necromancer because the Necromancer has proximal fear pants that will allow you to run through somebody with Wraith form and guarantee the fear. So for that reason, Chip of the Stone Flesh plus Nightmare Wreath on a Necromancer with the proximal fear pants in particular is a good combo. But other than that, I'm not a huge fan of this one, especially because fear makes them run away and will, if you blow up somebody in the middle of the pack, would disorient the pack. So for me, I think this one today is not going to get a very good rating from me. I think it's going to get C tier. Oh boy, Berserker's Eye. This is actually a great one. So Berserker's Eye is S tier. Gonna spoiler, no doubt. Increased damage you deal by a certain percentage and increases your critical chance by a certain percentage. The downside is increases damage you take by a certain percentage. So if you're running Blood-Soaked Jade as well as Berserker Eye, they have counter synergy basically because this one's going to make you drop your HP faster. Not a big deal though. Reason being is the amount of damage you receive. I think it was Velchut actually. You should check out his video. He did a video where he talks about Berserker's Eye essentially being worth the most in the game in terms of just value, you know, what it costs to its value proposition is basically the best gem in the game. So for free to play, it's a staple. 1-star gems are always the easiest to max out. It's going to be really hard for me to give this anything other than an S tier because S tier is definitely what it deserves today. Pain of Subjugation is a weird one. You deal increased damage to enemies suffering loss of control, okay? And then decreases all damage you take while you're suffering loss of control. So this almost makes you think of PvP, or it makes you think of the Nightmare Wraith from earlier where we could combine these. Same thing as the Necromancer or more general use. Don't really like these type of gems, but it does have more general use. I understand the decreasing damage while you're suffering loss of control could be kind of interesting. You pair all these, you know, like this and Battleguard and Unity and all these gems together, and maybe you're really tanking PvP. I could see some weird builds with that. I still don't like any of it. You'd have to get 1-star gem just for that. It's not like the Berserker's Eye where let's just cut to the chase, okay? Let's just cut to the chase. I don't think anyone here is going to argue this is a good gem. I'm going to put it, well, it should be at least as good as Wreath, so I think Wreath is worse, so I'm going to put Wreath at D, and I'm going to put this one at C. You know what? No, they're both D tier. Let's be honest. Let's both update them to D tier. Decreases all damage you take by a certain percentage for every percentage your life is below the maximum, okay? And then gain armor increase while your life's below the maximum. I think this has a niche use with barbarians, free-to-play barbarians in particular. I think there's better gems to have in this spot, better 2-star gems, better 1-star gems you could have in this spot, but I do see a particular use for this with barbarians. I also like the increased armor while your life is below at a certain point to help with the blocking, but again, it has the same problem as the other gems. I mean, I hate to do this 3 in a row, but like all of these 1-star gems have the same problem where they don't benefit you in any way. It's not like a Berserker's Eye where it has a value proposition. It's not like the Black Rose where it can do something sometimes. These are all just about reducing damage. So I think they all live in the same boat. Here's one I like a little bit better. Increases the speed of your primary attack, which there is actually primary attack builds you can do with, I believe it's Shao Bass that has the 2-piece primary attack combo, and there is actually magic magic properties on your gear, your substats is what I'm trying to get out here, that will, I think they're actually called magic stats, that have primary attack increase as well. So you can ideally stack some insane primary attack. There's also the quickening orbs that increase your attack speed like crazy too. So I think there's something to be said for eventually somebody might run some kind of primary attack build. And I could see this being used in that sort of primary attack build, especially because it increases the damage of primary attack when you upgrade it, not just the speed. So I think this one is definitely better than the other ones we were talking about recently. I think it has a use, even if it's niche. I think it still does, in fact, have a use. I think this is probably a B tier gem, in my personal opinion. It's up there with the Black Rose. If I had to put Black Rose to C tier in order to make this one stand out more, I would. I don't think it's A tier, but I think it's a B tier for sure. Zod Stone is one that I actually like a bunch. It depends upon your class, though. Increases the duration of your ultimate and the damage of your ultimate. So if you have classes where ultimates are really good, Necromancer with our Soulfire ultimate comes to mind, then this can actually be quite good. It also can be pretty amazing when you use it in things like Rifts, where you charge an ultimate, go into it with it, etc. And it can be good in PvP, in particular, because I think ultimates, when you prepare for things like Shadow War and you prepare your ultimate going into it, you'll have a longer duration ultimate from the beginning, so there's some more burst potential with your ultimate. I have to grasp a little bit at straws for 1-stars. You have to keep in mind in order to give them some viability, or else they would just all instantly go to the D tier. I think this one has some potential because it does increase damage as compared to only decreasing damage and not doing anything. Don't think it's anything like increasing the primary attack or the immobile procs of the Black Rose, but I think it's C tier today because it's okay. Everlasting Torment is definitely one of the better ones. It actually has this weird mechanic, I know, for the Necromancer too, which the Seeping Bile doesn't proc off summons, but the Everlasting Torment does. So if you have the Everlasting Torment proc off of a summon, then the Everlasting Torment damage will proc your Seeping Bile. So if you have a Seeping Bile and Everlasting Torment, they work in conjunction really well together. Critical hits inflict agony, so it also works really good with like a Shepherd set, but it will work pretty good with things like Cutthroat as well, and increases your attack speed for each nearby enemy afflicted with agony. So having more and more attack speed can be quite good, especially on channeling for things like the Wizard. I think the Everlasting Torment is right up there with the Berserker's Eye because it's so cheap, like the Berserker's Eye, and provides such a value prospect today. I think it's S tier as well. Defiant Soul is another one of these sort of defensive because you decrease all damage you take after blocking, but it also has some offensive prospects where you deal damage, your base damage, plus a flat amount to nearby enemies. I do like that the base damage amount is actually decently high for a 1-star, 64%. If you're trying to get some damage and you're playing something like Crusader, Barbarian, Monk, like people running in, I actually don't think this is that bad of a gem, in my personal opinion. I think it's maybe a little bit slept on. I don't think it's an amazing gem. I don't think it's the first one you want to max out, but I think it actually could be used potentially. And so for that reason, I'm going to put it in the C tier because I think it's okay, could be used like the Zod Stone. Not good, not great, but it's also not A tier, S tier, B. It's not up to snuff with these other ones, but I think it is up to snuff with like the Hunger and Zod Stone is a fair comparison. Now, Freedom and Devotion is actually something I like a lot. Increases the duration of your summons and the damage of your summons, both the things you want to see. Now, duration of your summons is quite important when you're running summon builds because often if you get just a little bit more duration, it will allow you to have 100% uptime on things like the Golem, for instance, on Necromancer, or the Mystic Allies on the Monk. Having 100% uptime can change things for your damage output for sure. So I think this is a really good one. It's not Everlasting Torment and it's not Berserker's Eye because both of these work on literally every single class in the game, plus have multiple things like will proc Seeping Bile with the critical hits off Everlasting and have synergy with other ones. But this one's still a good gem and can pair well with like Follower's Burden. So because of that, I don't think it's S tier, but it's definitely better than B tier. So where we're going to put that one today is that's our first A tier 1-star gem. Chain Death is interesting. Increases damage by your attacks per target hit. So it's for AoEs. It's up to a certain percentage, which is a low cap. Don't like that. But then Chain Death bonus damage increases to a maximum of 4 targets. So you go up and up and up and up higher with the more and more and more targets. Now, a lot of our damage in the game is in fact AoE. When you're farming, if you're only killing 1 minion at a time, like you're farming slow. So this is a little better than it seems. For that reason, and because most people are hitting multiple, even like basic attacks can pierce. Like most people have piercing basic attacks or ones that will hit multiple people that cleave at least. So for that reason, I think Chain Death is actually all right. I think it's a B tier. It's up there with primary attack increase. I want to put A tier, but I don't think it's quite the freedom and devotion level, but I still think it's not bad. Mocking Laughter, I feel like, is an actual joke, unironically, in the game. Your primary attacks forces non-elite monsters it hits to attack you. First of all, if you hit a non-elite monster, they're dead. Okay? That's just right off the bat. Now, I know you could say, well, that's because you're a whale and all that. Yeah, you're right, but you're right, and I have more damage than the average person. Yeah, you got me. But still, hitting a non-elite monster and then having a non-elite monster have, okay, let's say 2/3 of their health left if you can barely hurt them, then force targeting you isn't good if you're not one-shotting these things, right? If you're low damage, that means you're weak to them, which means why would you want to force a taunt on them as the tank? It doesn't make sense logically if you just think it through, right? But if you're too strong, where you would want to be the tank, so the weaker people could maybe get in there and fight too, that have it, without getting one-shot, then you're one-shotting them. Like I would do, right? So this gem literally doesn't make sense. I think it's a joke in and of itself. Decreases damage you take from monsters affected by Mocking Laughter. It's just to double down on it being a joke. I legitimately think this one's a meme. I like this one a little bit better. You increase your damage after killing an elite monster and increases your damage to elite monsters. So it's pretty good for things like challenge rifts, where all you're trying to do is get progress orbs. For that reason, I think this one can be all right, especially for free to play if you're trying to push challenge rifts. So I think it does in fact have a use. I think it's better than Black Rose. I think it's better than the primary attack. I think it's probably an A tier 1-star gem. We don't have many 1-star A tiers. We do have a couple really good ones, couple all right, good ones. These are very good. These are good. These are all right. These are and these are like, oh, you know what I mean? Okay, last but not least, we have Trickshot Gem. I actually like this one a lot, to be honest. I'm a little sad that this one is not a higher resonance gem so it could be used. The reason being is that your channeled skills consume energy slower. So things like the Wizard, where you're using your Disintegrate skill, or Bone Spirits on the Necromancer, or Whirlwind on the Barbarian, you'll get more of that. And I like that a lot. I think there's one problem with it. It decreases damage you take while using the channeled skill. It's like, okay, this is obviously for someone that wants to spam it. So why not, the longer your skill is channeled, the more ramping damage it has or something like that. It could have better synergy, a better design, and it would really push it. But I do like this one. I think that it has some potential. I think it goes to B tier. Okay, so we're on to the 5 stars. We're going to start with Phoenix Ashes. Phoenix Ashes being one of the only defensive 5-star gems. For this reason, it's harder for me to rate it higher, because normally if you're pushing the 5-star gems, you're looking for damage because you want more resonance, you want more combat rating, you're looking to be stronger and stronger, and typically people that are being stronger and stronger, min-maxing, are trying to deal damage more often so you can farm through things like dungeons quicker. For this reason, Phoenix Ashes gets a little bit of a neg, but it's still pretty good, especially in PvP, because you get a shield right when you should have died that gives you it's a fairly large shield because it's stacked off your base damage. So if you have decent damage, you can both get built towards damage while getting some good defensive abilities. For that reason, it's good in PvP, because you normally want to build kind of for damage in PvP anyway. And the shield, blowing through the shield can be quite difficult. So you get this one opportunity, your one moment, your one shot, never let it go, of being able to stand there and nuke while your shield's going off. It gives you sort of a cheat death mechanic from the Paragon tree again. So if you have things like the Barbarian, which you have Undying, then you have the cheat death, then you have the Phoenix Ashes, you have to kill these people like 3 times, 4 times, and it gets really, really, really annoying, and you literally can't outlast them. Like, you can't go and bandage because they're still in the fight. They're just dying over and over again. So they're getting more EHP, or effective HP, on you. For this reason, Phoenix Ashes is good in PvP, but not good elsewhere, in my own personal opinion, so I'm going to give it B tier. Ship of the Stone Flesh gets, I think, too low of a rating for what it is. It's actually quite good. Basically, it marks somebody when you either stun or fear them because it's total loss of control, which is where it kind of gets a bad rep because things like Black Hole, knock up, knock back, slow, this doesn't trigger it, only stun and fear does. And then it marks them, increasing the damage, basically, that they receive, which with this portion here when it goes to rank 3, but the more important portion is that this curse not only increases the damage they receive, but also at the end of it, by a percentage of the total damage that was dealt to them during the time of the curse, they blow up. So you are effectively doing a time-delayed nuke on somebody. You mark them, then you do a little bit more damage to them, but on top of it, at the end of it, they're going to be exploding for a percentage of all of the damage that you have done to them. This is actually not bad. Most people have a stun in their skill set or a fear, some way to be able to proc this. It does mean you have to build your builds around this a little bit, but it's not so bad, and I think it has good burst opportunity and is pretty good in PvE as well. So for that reason, today, I think this gem, it's a good one. It's not the best gem in the world, but it's a good one. It's really hard to put this. It's going to have to go above the Phoenix Ashes, so I think it's going to be A tier for me. It's not an S tier, but it is a good gem. Howler's Call is another one that I'm seeing people ragging on a little bit. I was almost going to do a video covering this gem just itself, and I might still, because Howler's Call is actually the highest hitting move in the game for whatever reason. It's right up there with the 6-piece Mount Bank set. It actually will hit really crazy. It's the only ability in the game that I can hit 100,000 damage with. I tried all my Necromancer moves. I've tried all the Wizard moves. This is the only ability in the game that, for me, hits that amount. So it's been my hardest hitting move in the game, and I've asked many people. It seems that they've had the same experience with it, and the only other way we've been able to get any damage numbers the same as to what this thing will proc in comparison to our damage numbers is with things like 6-piece sets that will trigger, and then you have a Perfect Storm, etc. But even by myself, I've been able to get this thing to hit for 100,000 damage. Effectively, what it does is when you're basically attacking, you have a chance to throw this wolf, and the wolf will, you know, proc a big amount of damage. The wolf is piercing, so it goes through people. It's actually fairly fat and wide. He definitely eats a lot of food. It's a fat wolf, so it's pretty easy to hit people with this. The cooldown's only 20 seconds, and then he also has a chance to stun the enemies too. So stunning enemies, as you already know from the previous gem, can be pretty good. So in my opinion, Howler's Call, not a bad gem. I do think that Howler's Call is up there in A tier as well. I think these two might be a little controversial. I think they get a little bit of a bad rap. I think that they're better than people think. I'm currently using them myself. I would just say give them a try. Seeping Bile, no contest. Everyone maybe thinks is the best gem in the game, and it might just be the best gem in the game. Your attacks have a chance to poison people, which is basically a dot over time. Think of like a warlock from World of Warcraft, right? Like some kind of affliction lock. You're just basically dotting the people up. What's so great about this is it spreads like a plague. And when somebody dies, it goes to the next one. This isn't a chance, it just happens, okay? The poison also decreases their movement speed, so not only is it spreading around, but then you're also slowing them too. Amazing gem, some of the best damage in the game, if not the best damage in the game. Like I've mentioned prior on this list, has synergy with the Everlasting Torment 1-star gem, and it's fantastic. I mean, really, this is an S tier. You know I'm going to put it in S tier. I think it's the best gem we've talked about literally all day. Absolutely amazing. If you get one, you should use it. Okay, so Blessing of the Worthy is a mixed bag because it's actually really good, and again, is one of the hardest hitting moves in the game. Like, it hits up to the numbers that Howlers will do, okay? Because you'll do 20% chance dealing a percentage of your maximum life. So if you're somebody who is a well or even dolphin or somebody who's not spending, you know, insane amounts, but you're spending some and you have higher resonance because you have gems, etc., like the ones we're talking about today, you're going to have more life, which means you're going to be doing more damage. So it is a win more gem, meaning it is worse for people that just get lucky and get it than it is for the people that are buying a bunch of them, okay? I guess that goes to be said with most of the things, but in this game in particular, it's worth noting because of the way that it works off of maximum life and resonance buffs your maximum life. Not your maximum base life, your maximum life, so it can hit quite hard. Now, you also receive decreased damage. That's not really the big point of it because it does kind of push people back, so a little bit of the pushing back time from it is decreased. And I don't actually like this one on ranged people. I think if you're playing like Wizard, Necromancer, Demon Hunter, it can still work because yes, you do get hit, and yes, it does hit hard, and yes, it is a viable gem because, you know, with all the 20-second procs between Howlers and this one, you can have all these different timing windows of all these different burst opportunities, okay? But I find it, I crunched all mine because I find them harder to use. I found them to be only really proccing when something I didn't want to have happen was happening. Now that you might be able to say, well, DM, in some situations like PvP, you don't always get to choose your battles. And if a Barbarian or Crusader jumps on you, having something knocking them back and doing damage would be a good thing to have in PvP. And with that argument, I could not argue. I would agree. And that's why I think Blessing of the Worthy, hate to be boring, but it's going to be the third one in a row that's A tier. It's not S tier. I guess the Seeping Bile was prior, but it's not S tier like Seeping Bile. It's not B tier like Phoenix Ashes. It is good, not one of the very best, but definitely not one of the very worst. It's you know, maybe top 4. Here's one that is quite good, the Blood-Soaked Jade. It increases damage you deal and increases your movement speed. Now, something people don't do is keep full HP very often, so you lose a lot of your bonus damage. But if you keep full HP, you actually do get a pretty good amount of bonus damage. I actually am using the Blood-Soaked Jade myself. It's one of the gems I'm currently running here. And look at this, I get 13.5% damage with a minimum bonus of 6.75, so you go to half basically there. And then 10% additional movement speed. Okay, now additionally, I take decreased damage while below a certain percentage of life, but normally we're running this for the bonus damage, nothing else. I do think that Blood-Soaked Jade is hard to get your hands on, especially in the market. It's very competitive. People seem to be buying them a lot. Keep in mind, this bonus damage does not count for summons. It's not summon bonus damage, so if you're Necromancer, this gem is way worse, but it is still one of the best gems for all the classes because movement speed is insane in this game. So this is an S tier gem right next to Seeping Bile. Echoing Shade is something that I feel like people have flipped on. When it originally came out, people were selling it for close to, you know, lower price, like half price of what it's going for now, like 30K. Now people are buying them up at maximum price. This summons a clone. The clone lasts for a good amount of time, and you can have more and more clones, up to 3 clones at higher rankings. I think it's rank 6 or 7 that gives you the 3rd clone. And these clone count as summons. In addition, they are going to be one of your best ways to deal single target damage because you can get a bunch of them and they're all spamming basically your basic attacks. Something to note, however, is that it doesn't gain some of your abilities. It gains some random abilities. Some random abilities that your class have, not you have. So it's not going to repeat moves off of your build is one thing I've noticed. But it does have basic attacks, which is basically the entire reason. You're just trying to get more single target damage. Very good for nuking bosses. I actually think, in my personal opinion, Echoing Shade is one of the better gems in the game. I think it's top 3 up there with Seeping Bile and Blood-Soaked. This might be another contentious point, but I think if you look at most of the people who are doing the top damage on your server and ask them what they think about their gems, I guarantee you people will back up this point here on the Echoing Shade. I'm noticing a lot of people using Echoing Shade on my server. I'm seeing a lot of my friends using it. I wish I myself had the opportunity to use this one. If I was a Necromancer, I probably want to use this one too, because any class that needs better single target damage, like even Wizard, where you're using your Crystal to disintegrate a lot of people, but you need better single target damage. It's also really good in PvP and messes with people's AI, so I haven't even gotten into that portion. There's a lot to be said about this gem. It probably deserves its own video, but I think it's S tier. Bottled Hope is another really good gem. It's my highest rated gem, or my highest ranked gem that I own. Using a skill to ground a buff increases the damage down the movement speed. So basically we have Blood-Soaked, okay? Damage and movement speed. But instead of a life-based requirement, what do we have? We have a buff-based requirement. So you need to be able to buff yourself, meaning if you don't have a class that can buff yourself with a shield, any kind of damage buff, anything like that, you are basically out of luck with this gem because you have to have a way to buff yourself, okay? Now, some people don't realize that things count as buffs, like Wraith form on Necro actually counts as a buff, for instance. So there is multiple ways to proc this. You just have to mess around with your skills and find it out. I do think because that, plus it decreases the cooldown of all your skills, and it can get quite high. Like if you look at mine here, I have a rank 7 of this, I believe is what it is, if I remember correctly. And where is it? When you buff, it's 17%. So 17% is enormous. But then the skill cooldown decreases 4.5% as well. So 17% buff is a big fatty. That's a big movement speed buff on top of the percentage I already have from Bottled Hope. So it's good for burst window timings, and I think it's one of the better gems. I think that, in my personal opinion, it's probably S tier as well, because if If Echoing Shade is S tier, then this one's S tier, or else we might have to drop this one down like that. But I think this is way better than Howlers or Chip the Stoneflesh or even Blessing. So in my opinion, I think it looks like this so far. Last but not least, we have Zwinson's Haunting. I think Zwinson's gets a pretty bad rep because I use this one. The problem is it says it summons a Dark Beast. I don't know why it says that. There's no Dark Beast. It's literally a purple AoE that drops from the sky and just splatters, and you gain a chance for another attack when you unlock at higher ranks. I have used this. It does hit fairly hard. It does not hit as hard as Bottled Hope. It does not hit as hard as Howler's Call, but it does hit harder than each individual Seeping Bile dot, for instance, okay? So this is only good for overworld farming. This is basically garbage in PvP, and it's garbage on bosses. It's garbage on most things. It's only really good for overworld farming, and unfortunately is one of my higher ranked gems. I had to for the Resonance. It is fairly cheap, however. I think it's B tier right there with Phoenix Ashes. You're going to notice I have no of the 5-star gems in C and D tier, and most of the ones in C and D tier are mostly 1-stars. That's just the way it works. Unfortunately, it's the reality of this game. Gems are a little bit pay to win. I say a little bit, but they're a lot pay to win. And 5-stars are factually, statistically better than the other ones. So I'm just being realistic. I love you all. Hope you guys liked this video. It was a lot of effort. Consider liking the video or subscribing if I have earned it. Timestamps are down below. You can feel free to rewatch this anytime you get a new gem. Consider watching another video of mine, and I'll see you guys on that next video.